Okay, so you have a Gemara in front of you?
Yes.
Okay, so let's learn for a few minutes. So uh we're up to your Testament Aleph. Um uh Echad Hatis V'Kitzitz B'Natiyos. We're going to take it from there, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 lines to the bottom of Testament Aleph.
Okay.
Okay. One person went into the meditation about what's happening in heaven, and as a result, he chopped down the saplings. Now, I want to explain what that means. Chop down there's a tree. There's a metaphor. There's no real tree, obviously, but there's a tree which grows from heaven to earth. The roots are in heaven, and the foliage, the leaves are down, and the fruit are down here below. In other words, all the bracha which we have in this world all comes from Shamayim down to us. So it's like a tree which is upside down. So the tree also means that there's a connection between this world and the worlds above us, between Shamayim and Oretz. Acher came as Kotitz Benatios, he said there is no connection. Says, of course, there's a God, but God doesn't care what's going on in this world. And what we do in this world has no impact, has no concern before HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's Kotitz Benatios means he came to the conclusion that there is a God, but it doesn't matter what we do in this world. Okay?
What would he be cutting?
What?
If Acher is saying there's no connection, what would he be cutting?
In other words, it's not that there was there was a tree which he cut down, right? He said,
Yeah.
no, there is no connection, and Chazal are giving a mashal for that. They're saying it's as if that we know there's a tree, we know there's a connection. As if Acher came by denying it, he cut down that tree. Okay, so the Mani was this Mani Acher, Elisha ben Abuya. Shehoeg Rabbi Torah. He killed people, young people who were growing in Torah. So the Karmeh says not young people, but Gedolei Torah. But I don't think that that's the shot because of the next line. It said Kol Talmud. He said any students that he saw growing in Torah, Hava Mishabach means improving themselves in Torah. Hava Katia Lay. He used to kill him. Now, we don't believe that he literally killed them, right? But rather, although that's what the Karmei Eda says. Karmei Eda says, Armin Kol Tam Shiro Shu Matzliach B'Torah Hoya De Machashefos Aydei Shemos. Anytime he was supposed to be Matzliach in learning, he killed him by sorcery or by using the Shemos of Hashem. But that might be a one meaning of the Gemara, but what the Gemara really means is that if he saw kids learning Torah and steiging and growing in Torah, he convinced them not to apply themselves in Torah. He killed them by trying to get them out of the Beis Medrash, to stop learning and go out of the Beis Medrash and go involve themselves in matters of this world.
Lieberman.
That was what he did. And that's he says.
He's Lieberman. He's Lieberman. He's Lieberman.
Lieberman? Okay. Lieberman is not that. Because you have to be a Talmud Chacham who knows and then say, you know, I'm going to now push people away. He doesn't have that. He doesn't have that background. He doesn't have the credibility. Acher has the credibility. So, below now that have a base vada. He used to go into the Beis Medrash. He saw kids in front of the seats for him. He used to say, "Ma ilin yasmin avdin hacha." what are these people doing here? These kids. Why in the base medrash? The craft, the trade of this one who's trying to be a Talmid Chacham, he should be a builder. The craft of this one should be a carpenter. And the craft of this one should be a hunter. And the craft of this one should be a tailor. They came and having Shami came, and once they heard Acher saying this, having Shavkin way, they used to leave him. That was usually the base medrash, and they would go pursue these trades which he told them to go pursue. So what Acher did, that's how he killed them. He killed them by convincing them, the Torah is a waste of time. You should go out and get a job. Go out and get a job doing this, go out and get a job getting that. So you're saying that the young students who are growing in Torah, no, this is not where it's at. You should leave the base marriage and go get involved in something real. Okay, so you should get involved in something real, so to speak. Don't cause yourself. Don't cause yourself to sin that by using your mouth to do so. It says in first line, with the words of his mouth, he made them sin, the children sin. Now here, I don't know how the Korban knows. The next thing he says, He wants to say that these were Acher's own kids, that he was causing them to go off the derech. He says not necessarily. I mean, all Jews are brethren. Now, the reason why the Korban is trying to say that because the pasuk says, "B'sarecha" means your flesh. So usually we understand meaning your flesh and blood. So that's what he wants to say. That it's talking about his own kids. He told his own kids, leave the base medrash. But and the Yefei Mara says, well, not real. It doesn't have to be that way because all Jews are considered to be one big family. So and I think that regardless, the pasuk is just being used not to precisely define the situation, but to describe in general the situation, what Acher was doing. He was using his mouth to cause Am Yisrael to sin. Okay, he was convincing these kids to go out of the base medrash. So this sounds like Korban is correct because it says he destroyed the deeds of that person, the handiwork of that person. It sounds like it's about Acher himself. He destroyed his own handiwork. He destroyed his own kids. But I don't know if necessarily you have to learn that way. You just say that they were once his Talmidim, right? He destroyed his own handiwork. These were his Talmidim before he went off the derech. When he went off the derech, so then he destroyed them. You know, they have this program on Netflix. You hear about this program on Netflix about this woman who used to be from, who now became non-observant. So she has a program called My Unorthodox Life. So this woman actually, she was from, and she taught in girls' schools. She taught Torah in girls' schools in Atlanta, I think. And so you know, if she's now trying to be like Acher, she taught students. She has students, good girls who grew up and became very nice Jewish woman, but knows Torah. And now she made a television program saying, I went off the derech, come join me. I'm having a grand old time being off the derech. So that's kind of what Acher was doing, right? You're saying, listen, you are my Talmidim, I went off the derech, come join me off the derech. This is where it's at. Yes, that's what he's saying. He had these Talmidim, and he destroyed these Talmidim. Abishas Aksa. even at a time of there was of difficulty. Aksa is tzoros. So you look at Chapter 8 in the second white line, it says, "V'shoshu tzoros Yisrael," when the difficulties are Yisrael, shegaz alim shalakayim mitzvos. They decreed that they shouldn't fulfill mitzvos. So one was to say the goyim decreed that the Jews should not fulfill was Shabbos. So have a matilin. They put loads on Jews to carry on Shabbos. They made Jews carry with no Erev on Shabbos. So there's halacha of two people carry a burden, which one person can carry. So they're not. It's still asur d'rabbanan, but there's no issur d'oraisa. If two people, if two people carrying a burden that only two people can carry, then they're both over issur d'oraisa. But they're carrying a burden that one person could have carried, so there's no issur d'oraisa. It's only issur d'rabbanan. So what the Jews would do in order to try and avoid having to be over issur d'oraisa, they would put the burden on two of them together, each of which could have carried the burden on his own. So that way, there was no issur d'oraisa, only issur d'rabbanan. So Acher, when he saw this, he went to the authorities and said, "Look, those two guys, they're trying to keep Shabbos by carrying the burden on two people. Go take the burden off the two of them, put on one of them, so he's going to actually mechal Shabbos d'oraisa." So Acher was so obsessed with getting Jews to sin that he went and he made sure that even if they're only doing this as a rabbanan, because two people are carrying the burden together, make them do this as d'oraisa. Put it on one of them, not so it's not on both of them. Do you hear that?
Yeah, but why are they doing an issur d'rabbanan in the first
Because
place?
the authorities made them do it.
Ah.
It's because nefesh. Okay, so but they still, even in the case of pikuach nefesh, you want to diminish the issur you're doing.
Wouldn't it still be pikuach nefesh if they had one person doing it?
Yes, they would have to do it anyway, but they still wanted to do as small an issur as possible. Okay, and he wanted them to do as big an issur as possible. He was so mahader in averos that he wanted them to do the biggest aver that he possibly could get them to do. So that's he says here. Miton trey charmatul. They had him. They intended means they made sure that two people would carry one burden. Okay, what?
Isn't there the Maisa where Acher was walking with one of his Talmidim and they were saying Tchum?
That's coming
and he said that.
That's coming up.
But doesn't that go against what Acher is doing right now?
Yes, and that's kind of an important point. That's on Amud base. So he said also he went and made sure that they carried individually, or that should be over the avera of Chilul Shabbos. Still, Vava Miskavnin Mifruk Bekarmelis. They tried to take the load off when they were not in Rosh Hashanah, but in a Carmelis, because we know in a Carmelis, it's only issur d'rabbanan, not issur d'oraisa. So they would take these loads out of Rosh Hashanah and try and put them down in a Carmelis. So Acher saw that. He said they had in mind and how do they do that? The Shar Torah says they pretended it was a very heavy load and they had to stop to rest in the Carmelis, and that way instead of going from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah directly, they went from Rosh Hashanah to a Carmelis, and Carmelis to Rosh Hashanah, which is an issur d'rabbanan, not an issur d'oraisa. This issur d'oraisa goes directly from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah and from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah. But if you go from Rosh Hashanah to a Carmelis and then to Rosh Hashanah or vice versa, it's only issur d'rabbanan. So they pretend, you know what, we have very heavy loads. When we get into the Carmelis, we have to stop to rest. And that way they avoid issur d'oraisa. Because in the middle they stop to rest, they put the burden down, and there would be no issur d'oraisa because it was, again, not going directly from Rishus Yochid to Rishus Rabbin, but Rishus Yochid to a Carmelist to Rishus Rabbin. Okay, Acher saw this. He didn't like this, right? Again, the Shalom Rishus Rabbin, Amar Atinu Tzluchin. So he said, make them carry light plates. In other words, give them light loads, so they can't have an excuse that they need to stop to rest. In other words, the authorities were saying, you're full of baloney, you don't need to rest. We'll give you light loads, so for sure you don't need to rest. It's looking at our plates. Aslin, and Sluchim. So he went and he gave them, gave them plates, and that way they weren't able to have that excuse to rest in the Carmelists. Rabbi Kiva went in, when he went into the paradise, when he went up to Shamayim to meditate, he went in peace, and came out in peace. Allah concerning him, the pasuk says during the page, Mashcheni acharecha narutza. Draw me after you, and I will run. Now, the end of the pasuk is important. Let's see, carbon 8 on top. It says, Mashcheni kimashcheni daiti. Kimashcheni daiti. It's as if my wisdom has drawn me. Hevanti kol tzorech. I understood everything much clearer. You see, Oz acharecha narutza, and then I'm able to run after you. And this is the end of the pasuk. Hashem, the king, brought me into his inner rooms. The secrets of those the rooms. The Heichal translates as a hall or a sanctuary in Shamayim. So Mashcheni acharecha, draw me after you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Narutza will run together. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought me into his palace, into his inner rooms. Okay, so the next case is we go back to Acher, and there's a long story about Acher, including the one which you talked about Chum Shabbos. But I think I want to leave it for next week because it's getting late and I have to go to Mincha anyway, and there's only. I don't want to, if we can get more people, it's a fascinating Gemara. I'd rather do with more people together. So next week, at what time do they finish camp? Can we start a bit earlier? Because Mincha's getting early.
They start, we could. They end camp on Wednesdays at 6:15, I think.
Okay, so let's try for 7 o'clock next week.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
Okay, Shkoyach, have a good night.
Thank you, Rebbe. Have a good night.
Tell people I want to learn. I'm back and ready to learn.
Is Sunday, are we going to be?
Sunday too, 8:45.
Yes? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rebbe.
Okay, take care.